Hey guys, it's Ultimate Super X, and I'm doing this unscripted. So excuse me when I stutter or blah blah blah, because reasons. And I'm just far too lazy to make a script. Anyways, here we are at the holidays. Well, Christmas coming up, and whatever holiday you celebrate. And also known as one of the most stressful times of the years. Extremely stressful. Yes, give me more of that stress. I love it. So safe to say, my Christmas has not been I'm not starting out very good. And I'm gonna rant on. I'm gonna talk about the reason why right now. And it's because of this stupid ass movie. This is the first Christmas movie I have seen this year. And it started. Safe to say, my Christmas started off badly. Because, boy, do I hate this stupid movie. Okay, first off, why every movie has to be set in the 80s? Why? Just why? It was fun when it done it. And, Stranger Things did it. But now we have, Captain Marvel in this movie doing it, and the trope is already starting to get very tiring. But anyways, I mean, why can't where's the love for the 90s? Where's the love for the 2000s? Where's the love for us 90s and 2000 kids? What? Well, to us millennials don't matter. Anyways, the movie's basically taking the Christmas story trope, and I'm not going to explain too much about the Christmas story because it's a classic. And if you have not seen the Christmas movie, then I like to ask, what rock have you been living in? And can you please invite me? Okay, this movie starts out in the modern day with this guy. I can't remember his name top of my head, and his little girl. And she's like, "Daddy, I want a cell phone." And goes like, "You can't have one." Which I'm not going to get into the whole debate if someone her age needs to have one or not. If a kid's different, go by your judgment if you feel like your kid is responsible enough for having a cell phone. And it feels like every time I press record with the record button, all my cats wants to meow. They want part of the video, but I won't let them. Anyways, they go to Grandma's Christmas. She's like, "What am I supposed to do here?" Which I feel your pain, because I used to visit grandparents that has little to no internet. And only thing I could do is bring all my video games to kill some time. And also lost a bit of Cartoon Network and Nickelodeon. Those were the days. Where was I? And he goes like, "Oh, you could," looks around the room and goes like, "Oh, you could play this." And he explains, "That's a Nintendo or NES." And he sticks it in, and they play Paperboy. They both play Paperboy. I don't remember if Paperboy was 2 players, but It's been a while. Anyways, oh, if you think this movie's going to have all kinds of video game references or show all kinds of the classic Nintendo games, you're in this for a sweet surprise. Prepare to be disappointed. So it goes to a transition to him telling the story of how he got his Nintendo. Every little kid's favorite story. Anyways, little transactions of them going, I'm not going to lie, it was kind of pretty cool going to Paperboy and slowly fading into him driving his bike, which I hope they had more video game moments like this, but they don't, unfortunately. So I'm going to skim through the plot a bit, blah blah blah, talking about how the rich kid has the Nintendo, blah blah blah, and him trying to beg his parents for a Nintendo. And this is my biggest nitpick. Okay, who finds this funny? Who finds a character that acts just like this dad funny? Because it's not funny. Being mentally abusive is not funny. I like people to stop trying to make it funny because it's not. People that act like this with their kids is not funny. Stop trying to make it funny. Anyway, the kid's trying to convince him to get him a Nintendo for Christmas. Well, the mom's like, well, I heard from so-and-so that it's the Nintendo melts kids' brains and make them do the strike to do this and then blah, 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 blah. You know, the typical boomer trope. As the dad continue with his mentally abusive shit, and they both tell him he can't aim for Nintendo for Christmas. So it's up for our little character to figure out how to get a Nintendo for Christmas. So we go to this rich kid's place again, showing off that he has the Power Glove because it's so bad and not in a good way. Anyway, he only chooses a couple of kids to go into his house. The main kid was not chosen, so he sneaks in, and he spawns the Nintendo, and he's like, and there it is, the Nintendo, a system that was so powerful that was not even dubbed as a video game system. It was dubbed as an 8-bit entertainment system, which they don't go into detail on why, because Nintendo actually dubbed it that way because America was still trying to recover from the whole video game crash. So they're trying to make people think it's an entertainment system, not a video game system. Yeah, I give you more facts than this movie will. Anyways, we see them play a game, which leads to one of my nutty big issues of this movie. See this? This is not a real video game. This is something they made up. And look at this. This does not look 8-bit. Sure, the character models look a little 8-bit, but the background is way too detailed to be 8-bit. That's 16-bit. And why do they have to use a fake video game? Why couldn't they just use a real video game? There's dozens of 2-player games they could have used. But I'm guessing that's because this is a budget movie, and they don't want to throw to me the money towards licensings. Anyway, the rich kid loses because, well, two reasons. The Power Glove is a piece of crap, and he didn't bother to put up the infrared things on his TV. So he gets mad, suddenly kicks the TV, and it lands on their little dog, which somehow survives that because bullshit. I mean, even if somehow survives a TV landing, the thing cracked and it should have been shocked to death. But anyways, if all the kids runs because they think the dog's dead, and we go to a different scene. Well, I think is the next scene is where the main kid, walks to school. Forced Whittaker's boots. Well, his Whittaker asks, "Why is that a problem?" He goes like, "Well, back in the 80s, that's seen as bad." Even though the 80s doesn't really have a problem of wearing hot pink shirts. Anyways, the kids found out that there's a contest of whoever sells the most leaves, those Christmas things, for the scout club thing, will win a Nintendo. Anyways, so they go out to try to sell these leaves or reefs. I can't pronounce shit. And when one, but he's having trouble to sell any. So, his sister gives him advice to how to sell any. Only if he helps her get a Cabbage Patch doll, if anybody remembers those, for Christmas. Trying to hint it at their parents. Later, they go to the mall and to look at the Cabbage Patch kids and see they're empty. The doll's sad, and he goes up and sees that the NES demo kit, and he goes up and play it. And this is another where we get to see the movie's budget. Well, the NES goes like, play me, I get to play any game you want. And the kid's like, let's play Super Nintendo. I don't have that. Let's play Castlevania. I don't have that. Yeah, we get to see the licenses. We get to see what game license does this movie just not have. And then the Nintendo's like, I know, we could play Rampage. And he goes like, okay. And we'll see like the only other video game gameplay of this whole movie that is actually a real game. This is my biggest issue. We only see them play two real games. The freaking Paperboy and Rampage. And no, that fake one does not count. And this is where I'm starting to feel like the movie is trying to be anti-game. I mean, anti-gamer, because we see him get so distracted with the game that he lost track of his sister. Well, he gets in trouble and they had to go look for her. They do find her talking to a Santa. But then he gets in trouble for losing his retainer. Anyway, skipping through, him and his dad meet this dude that's basically a reseller that's selling Cabbage Patch dolls and other stuff for much higher prices because, they're hard to find during Christmas. And the dad gets the doll, pays him $70. Kids notice the NES, begs him to get it for him, but the dad just ignores him. At this point of the movie, I thought that they was trying to hint that the dad might have already bought the NES and going to give it to him for Christmas. Unfortunately, this is not the case. But I'll get more into that later. Anyways, we're skipping ahead and talking about the contest. Third place has gotten a subscription to a magazine. Second place kid gotten a globe, which he immediately trashed. Which I don't blame him. That's actually the one of the funny part. And the main kid has won first place, but instead of getting a Nintendo, he gets a whole pile of encyclopedia, bunch of books. But instead of getting a Nintendo, he gets books. Bunch of books. Encyclopedia. A bunch of books. And he wonders how this has happened. They promised us a Nintendo. And did we see the reason? Was some old fart ended up having some kind of parents meeting and talking about how evil the Nintendo is, brainwashing his kid of making him kick the TV and almost kill the dog. While also reading that he has other mental problems, but brush that aside. Which at first I thought this movie was trying to give a middle finger to extremists, but later I kind of started to feel like the movie gives a middle finger to gamers, period. But I'll get more into that later. Anyways, all the parents finally agrees with him and going, Nintendo, or something to that effect. And like the dad is like the only one that's saying anything much, and I thought this was hinting towards that he might have already bought his kid the Nintendo, but again, that's not the case, and I'll go into that more into that later. Anyways, skipping ahead, the kids was at the twins' birthday party, and they're trying to think of a way to get their own Nintendo. And then the kids realize they have just gotten a very real baseball card. And it was like, hey, maybe if we sell all these baseball cards, we can get our own Nintendo. So they had this plan they have this very convoluted plan to get the bus stop at the mall and pick up the Nintendo. So I'm skipping ahead to that. They got the kid to follow up because some reason thinking of like Levios or whatever you call it makes him puke. And he ended up eating a lot of them, I think, and puke. And the main kid goes to the mall and tries to get the Nintendo and stops to see his mom and someone else's mom protesting against video games. So he had to think of a way, and they got the kid that tells a lot of lies to give him a phone call to distract him while he goes pick up the Nintendo, and he finally got the Nintendo. And you think he finally did it. He finally got what he always wanted, and with all that hard work. But no, the movie decides to take another dump on this kid by letting him slide on some ice, and the Nintendo slips through his grasp, goes under the bus as it starts to run over it into tiny, teeny, itsy bitsy pieces. Anyways, the kid's sad. and the guy that sold them the Cabbage Patch doll sees him, talks to him to make him feel better. Goes like, "Oh, Christmas isn't about getting what you want. It's about spending it with your family." Puts him in the cab, sends him to they was having that school field trip, and was skipping ahead towards the present with opening the presents. They open the presents. The little girl gotten the Cabbage Patch doll that she wanted, and he gotten some bookends for his encyclopedia, which makes me want to take those bookends and bonk his parents with it. Because again, this movie just can't get enough for taking shit it's on this kid. Sounds like my life in a nutshell. Then he sees a big package. A package that's from his uncle that lives in Japan. And he was like, Could this be the Nintendo? And he opens it up and realizes it's not the Nintendo. It's some Japanese glow dart things. If you remember those glow darts, I can't remember the name of them on top of my head. And even if he got got a Nintendo from Japan, that would be like a Famicom, and that means he's very limited to what games he could play on that thing. Because the Famicom is Legion Lock, and that means he's not able to play any American NES on that thing. And we're talking about the 80s, so that means he can't easily get any access to any other games. If it did turn out to be the Famicom. So that would have been still taking a huge shit on this kid either way. Anyways, then we get around near the end of the movie. We're about to go somewhere. And then the dad has him go outside. And then he sees a tree house that he built. And goes like, wow. He goes like, we built this together because that is those times he had him hold down some wood for him. And for him to saw or paint over some hockey sticks. And then we get to him all grown up, and the little girl goes like, okay, so where's Nintendo? The girl's like, oh, I never got it for Christmas. I just worked for it. Which I guess is supposed to be the moral of why she can't have a cell phone. Anyways, then we skip to them having dinner with Grandma, and it was revealed that their dad is dead or passed away, and to be so happy. And you go like, ever since he built that tree house, the son could not stop building stuff. And then the son grew up to be Gwen Beck and ended up being extremely anti-gamer. The end. Okay, I made up that. Well, technically, my cousin made up that last bit. No, I heard some people say that the dad actually, had a divorce, but that would not make a lot of sense given that his favorite cup is still there on the table, and why would they hold it in such high regards if it was like a divorce? So that doesn't really make much sense there. Okay, first off, who was this movie for? Because it sure doesn't feel like it was for gamers. I go into this thinking, oh, this is going to have so much history of Nintendo and talking about all the references and show all kinds of the old games, and no, they don't. They only show they only show gameplays of two real games and one fake game that doesn't even look like it belongs on a Nintendo. And the fact this movie made it so this kid cannot get a Nintendo no matter how hard he tried. Even though in the end of the movie he said, "Oh, I worked hard to get one. I just worked hard to get one." Yeah, like the whole plan of getting one was not working hard. You teaming up with your friends, selling the baseball cards. That sacrifice of the collection was not working hard. That just makes the sacrifice in vain. You standing up. I mean, there was one part where the bully stole his money, but later he gained the courage to stand up to the bully and got his cash back. But again, that ended up meaning nothing because he didn't even got what he worked hard to get. I'm sure some people will say, but that's not what matters. The story's moral was that spending time with your family is more important. That's so sweet. Too bad this is the every moral of every Christmas story out there. And this doesn't even work because of the fact that the family has showed favoritism towards his sister instead. But I guess we're going to go with that. Because this what this freaking movie's shown. Favoritism. Because she got what she wanted, but he couldn't get what he wanted. They spend extra money to make sure she gets what she wants, but they're not going to bother to make sure he gets what he wants. Even when the movie's shown that the kid asks why can't he get the NES, and the dad's response was just like, "Oh, do you want to hear your little sister cry and complain when she when she doesn't get a Cabbage Patch?" Gee, great logic, movie. Now you've only shown that you want to spoil the little girl. And more favoritism. And we never really get the sense that this dad even cares about his son. I mean, sure, yes, he made him that freaking treehouse. That's nice and all, but it doesn't feel like he did it for his son. It feels like he did it just to get his son to be into building shit like he does. And if I could stop and compare this to the Christmas movie that this movie's trying to also hard to rip off, I'm going to talk about the dad in that one. I mean, sure, he comes across as egotistical and asshole, always fussing and stuff. But even by the end, you get the sense that he cares for his son. Because the kid in the Christmas story wanted a freaking BB gun so freaking badly. He asks his mom about it. She goes like, "You shoot your eye out." She tries to ask Santa about it. He goes like, "You shoot your eye out." He made an essay about Christmas, about a Christmas gift he wants, and gotten a F or a D, and goes like, and the teacher wrote on his notes, "You shoot your eye out." He wanted that gun so badly, and it felt like no one cared, no one gave a shit. But the one person that noticed, the one person that paid attention was his dad. Because after he opened all the gifts, and at first he thought he did not got that gun. But then his dad's like, "Oh, what's that over there?" And the kid looks over as the mom's a little confused what's the dad's talking about, and he sees it, and the kid sees it, and opens up, and see that's a gun. The BB gun he always wanted. And the mom's like, hey, where did that come from? And the dad's like, oh, it's from Santa. He said as he smiles as he sees his son enjoys getting the Christmas wish he always wanted. The one gift he always wanted. And see, at first I thought it was, as a kid, at first I thought it was from Santa. But as an adult, I now know it was the dad that got him that gun. He was the only one that paid attention. He the only one cared enough to get him that gun, even though the mom is worried about it. He wanted to see his son smile. To see that big, bright smile when he opens that gift, to see what he actually got his Christmas wish. That joy of seeing your kid happy. But no, this movie didn't. But no, the 8-bit Christmas did not do that. The 8-bit Christmas felt like, is like, oh, you're a gamer, so screw you. You don't get what you want because video games are evil. This movie gave me a sense of, who cares about what your kid wants? Who cares about making them happy? Just push your passion onto them. That would make him love you. I'm like, no, this movie is awful. The ending ruined it for me. The ending ruined it for my cousin. This movie, it could have been a classic, even if they did not show a lot of video game stuff in it like I hoped. If they did something like the Christmas Story, it would still have been something fun to watch at least once a year. But no, they pulled that. And I'm like, no, that's bad. This whole movie's been totally mean-spirited all the way through. And because of that, this movie was also very, very hard to sit through. If it had a happier ending, then it would have made sitting through this bad movie a bit more tolerable. But instead, they went with a cliche, cheesy message. I mean, okay, I understand trying to do the whole bring friends and family together, but they could have easily done that with the Nintendo. Go like, oh, he got him the Nintendo and helped the mom and the mom tries it out for herself. Realize that video games are not as evil like she thought the way that guy is trying to make him out to be. And have the family get together, play the games, have friends get together, play the games, enjoy the Christmas magic of enjoying games and spending fun times with your friends and family. But no, they did not do that. It would have been such an easy thing to do, but no, they threw that out the window. And the time period that they decided to do like the ban video games thing was kind of very iffy. I mean, sure, there was a small stigma on video games on the 80s. I mean, in the 80s. But that really didn't blow into proportions until the 90s. When you had like Mortal Kombat and the graphics are starting to get more detailed. When you have like realistic, well, kind of realistic looking, and as 90 games can go. With Mortal Kombat. And the violence in that's what made people go like, violence so evil. And when you start to have like more shooting games, sort of, where the character will shoot stuff, or even like the small 8-bit first person shooters they had back then, or even like Doom, man. Doom is a 90s game, and that was also had a huge stigma. So why choose the 80s to do that? Because again, that would have made more sense in the 90s. It was the 90s that had more of the extreme games. Not the 80s. I mean, sure, they have a little bit, but enough. But most of them are like arcades, not the Nintendo. The Nintendo's was always been trying to do more of a century thing. I mean, sure, you had a couple shooting games like Duck Hunt and whatever games that could use the NES apple. But again, that most of that stigma started with the 80s, so the time point of doing that didn't really make a lot of sense. I mean, again, it was the 90s. Well, the government step in and tried to make games have a bit more of a have more of a rating in games. The ESB rating or ESR rating? I can't remember the name top of my head. Especially with Mortal Kombat and Night Trap. Oh boy, did that start up some stuff. But yeah, bad movie. Only people I could see this that's kind of enjoy this is probably boomers or people that kind of remember the NES but didn't really go beyond gaming since. This movie was a huge disappointment for me. Anyway, time to wrap things up. Thank you for listening to my wrong rant on this movie. And hope everyone have a good holiday. And I'll catch you guys next time whenever I upload another video. And time for me to pull the old YouTuber thing. Even though I'm not even close to being a YouTuber with the little subs I have. If like and subscribe, comment on what would you like to see next. And take care.